Years ago, I did a series that was a crossover with Tunnel Drama Island and Pokemon, and it was a mess. So today, I pose the question, what if I remade it into an original work? Slightly less of a mess, but hey, here's some white noise to listen to at least. Let's begin. So we cut to an island before 3 boats approach it with our 22 characters on it, but a decent ways away from shore, the boat stops and the contestants are told they have to swim the rest of the way. This is technically their first challenge. The last one to make it to shore will be eliminated. As for concerns of drowning or getting wet, the water's enhanced with that fresh TV magic, where even if you get dunked in, your hair is the only thing that gets wet. Also something the water tracks their location and the crew can rescue them in that worst case scenario. Most are able to get in the water just fine, some even just dive in like Lop, who tells the people on her boat that if they're at risk of drowning, she'll save them, only to be told by the captain that thing I mentioned earlier. Oops. But others are a different story. Amp slowly gets in the water, and Rose is a bit confused at first since she thought they were going directly to the place, but she does get over it after a few moments and starts to make up for lost time. As they're making their way to the island, whose in the lead is irrelevant, we get some of the cast's backstory. Luke, Zan, and Leaf are all orphans, but Luke is the oldest of the 3, and the 3 act like siblings and live in a quote-unquote orphanage. We'll get to that. Nape is a recently paroled prisoner, Rose is a fashion designer, Brio is a model, Esp is a freelance artist, Mighty is a singer who joined due to losing a bet with his friends, Gly is a cancer survivor who runs a dance club, she is a teacher, Sola is a refugee competing for a chance to speed up her citizenship, Lop is a swimming teacher, and Lumi is a doctor. The rest are either not much of note, like Lade, who's a college graduate, or unknown at the moment, like with Char, Chime, or Sai. As for why they're named this way, well, it's because they totally aren't Pokemon and, have no relation to them in this series. Okay, anyways, as the challenge goes on, Char's feeling a bit exhausted, and so Lade gives him a hand, only to find out that Char is missing an arm. Char reassures Lade it wasn't from a shark or anything in its water, he's just been like this for a long time. Rather than press Char on the story, though, he swims over to the other side of his body and helps him swim towards the shore. By the time they reach it, however, Psylop and Mighty have already made it, and all that was there was a robot saying to wait for the others. So while they wait, they make short talk with the 3. The others start rolling in as time goes on, until the last 2 in the water are Noir and Amp. The 2 are cheered on by the other contestants, but in the end, Amp makes it to shore first before patting herself down for some reason. Noir makes it to the shore a minute later, but he's still eliminated. But the robot then hovers over to the cast and tells them that Noir will be eliminated, and says that the order they arrive to the shore in will determine their place on the 3 teams. In addition, Noir is told by the robot that while he is the first to go, he's not technically leaving the island, as the first person out becomes the host of the season to save on fuel for this robot. But everyone else who gets eliminated from this point on is going straight home. Quote unquote. Noir is then taken in by the staff to be informed of his duties as host, and the others are sent to 3 different dorms, which will be their cabin equivalent for the time on the show. So since that process takes a day, let's go over who's on which team. Team 1 is called the Dia Tribe, and they are composed of Sai, Lop, Mighty, Char, Lade, Esp, and Sola. Team 2 is the Kia Tribe, and they are composed of Gly, Chime, Luke, Zan, Leaf, Brio, and Rose. And the Gira Tribe is composed of Pachi, Nape, Puru, Sol, Lumi, She, and Amphi. But as the 3 begin to settle in, Nape is annoyed to be working with Amphi and the others don't know why. Amphi's about to throw down with the redhead, but walks away before any altercation could occur. Oh, right, the food. Instead of a chef serving slop like so many TPIs and even Tunnel Drama had done, they get a pill a day that goes to the necessary cells over the course of the 24 hours, and it's fitted per person to match their dietary stuff, BMI, etc. Which is a nice way of saying, I'm too lazy to write scenes of them getting food or unfunny dialogue about the food being crap, so the area where they eat is instead one of many spots they can just chill and relax during the course of the season. Speaking of, some of the initial alliances begin to form as Esp and Lop form a friendship due to their love of the ocean, and then that gets expanded later on in the day, as they run into Leaf having a swimming contest with Luke, and the 2 hit it off with the other duo before the 4 agree to an alliance since Luke wants to make sure Leaf will be safe, much to her annoyance, but the others just laugh it off. As that's going on, however, Rose is checking her arms real quick before she hears footsteps and covers them once again with her sleeves. Turns out it was just Amphi saying hi. The 2 seem to make decent headway, but most of the convo came from Amphi as Rose was a bit nervous to talk at first. But she managed to cool down and began to join in on the conversation, the 2 ending with what they do for a living. But while Rose gives an easy answer, Amphi explains that she's unemployed. Rose asks if something happened, but Amphi just tells her it's a complicated matter, and she doesn't know how to discuss it yet. The 2 end up going their separate ways, but as Amphi walks off, Nape notices her nearby and gives her a glare before also walking off. However, he doesn't get too far as Zan snaps at him for stalking Amphi. Nape fires back and tells Zan to stay out of it, but Zan tells him that he doesn't appreciate stalkers and tells him once again to leave Amphi alone. After a stare down, Nape relents and says that he wants to give Amphi a piece of his mind, but hasn't found the right chance to do so. Zan then punches him in the face and tells him that if he puts his hand on Amphi, Zan will make sure that he doesn't touch anyone again. Nape asks what the hell his deal is, but Zan just tells him this: "Why shouldn't I be angry at a world that's hated me since birth?" He then chucks an ice pack at Nape and tells him the swelling will go away in a bit, and walks off. And with that concludes the first day. Now onto the second, which leads us into the first challenge. And for the sake of pacing, and because I suck at making challenges frankly, I'll only go over what it is about and any interesting character moments that come from it, for the most part. Anyways, first one has one member of each team jump off a big cliff, land in the ring, swim to the bottom, and grab a waterproof torch that will emit a fake flame as long as someone holds onto it, hand it off to another member of the team who's on a floating platform, have them swim off to another platform to give to another person while still holding onto it until the other person grabs it, have them climb up a ladder, give that off to one more person who will then place the torch on a pedestal which will drop a bag of puzzle pieces, and the remaining members of the team will have to solve a puzzle. So nothing much of note happens in the beginning, except Luke dives in with his shirt on while Nape and Shark just don't. Okay. Outside of that, the only thing of note is that when the Diatribe is in last place by the time of the puzzle portion, Mighty tries to solo the puzzle to make up for lost time, and when Esp and Sola try to help, when it's clear that this idea isn't working, he snaps at them out of frustration, leading Sai to shove Mighty out of the way and let the two work on the puzzle, and they're able to make up for some lost time. But it's too late, as the other two teams finish the puzzle before the Diatribe finishes at least half of it, sending them to elimination. Mighty apologizes for his behavior, but Sola and Esp understand his frustration. He just needs to get that they're a team and need to work together, and he agrees. The three shaking hands in the matter, while the rest of the team are more so confused on how Sai was able to do that, with Sai just shrugging it off. As the two teams celebrate their victory, however, it's up to the Diatribe to figure out who they're voting out. Char's name is thrown out since his disability might be a hindrance in later challenges, but Layden has to shoot that down since he was ahead of the others when he was swimming to the next platform. With no one else brought up, the team breaks away for a bit to think of their options, except for Layden and Char, who begin to talk about the idea of voting out Mighty, since Sola and Esp at their speed could have won them the challenge if they worked on the puzzle instead of letting Mighty take over. Char agrees and adds that it feels like Mighty's heart isn't really in it when compared to the others, and Lade points out that he only really joined because he lost a bet, which got Char's blood boiling and Lade confused. I get it, it's a dumb reason, but you don't need to be angry about it, man.
That's not why it pisses me off, Lade.
Char then clenched his fist before letting out a sigh.
Fuck it. We're on a team and need to work together. Might as well be transparent with my teammate at the very least.
He then takes his shirt off and reveals a lot of scars on his back and stomach.
Half my back lacerations were because my trafficker lost a bet with another one and lost some coin. Another was because he lost in a video game. And that's only on the back.
Lade was beginning to process what Char was talking about, and was about to pat him on the shoulder, but Char shook his head.
I appreciate your concern, Lade. But the fact I'm still alive is a blessing I shouldn't take for granted, so instead of letting it consume me, I just keep walking one step at a time.
Okay, but why are you telling me this and not the rest of the team?
Because you're the first person I met on this island, and because I trust you. I will, however, tell the others later. I just need to work my way up on that.
Char then gives Lade a smile, and the two fist bump. Well, if you need a hand, I got your back. Lade smiled back before the two shared a good laugh. Speaking of character scenes, Luke is chopping some wood, but doing it at a slow pace and is a bit clumsy, and this gets the annoyance of Pachi, who tells him to hit the front of a log, and he manages to do so, but nearly trips backwards. Pachi then grabs the axe and deals with the remaining wood in lightning speed, to Luke's surprise. Luke thanks Pachi for that, but Pachi raises a brow.
Let me see your hand real quick. Yep, you have a lot of experience chopping wood going off your hand wrinkles, so it gives.
Luke shrugs. I don't know what you're talking about. This is my first time doing so, but I wanted to help out the people on the island. After a bit of a glare, Apache shrugs it off and tells him to be more careful next time. Solo's over with Sai, Esp, and Lop and talking about voting for Mighty, and it's after that discussion that Esp asks Sai what's up with her immense strength, since Mighty was decently strong. Sai says that she's a weightlifter, and this impresses Esp since it's not an easy thing to get into, and Sai rolls her eyes before saying that's an understatement. She then says that it's still not as difficult as being a refugee, and asks Sola what exactly went down. She's comfortable with it, and Sola is surprisingly chill with answering. Basically, her homeland was engaged in deep civil war, and has started to devolve into a genocide of one of her home's tribes after a long and blood-stained time, so to save herself, she got in a wagon alongside others and rode away to another country where she's being sheltered until her immigration is fully approved, which is what led her to joining since her immigration agent told her it would help speed up the process if she got on. After hearing this story, the others gave her a hug and told her they got her back if they need it, but Sola reassures them that while she appreciates the offer, she doesn't want pity nor getting far out of sympathy. She wants to get far by her own skills and be viewed the same as everyone else. Espa and the others understand and wish her well as a competitor before going their separate ways. Alright, and with that, let's get to the elimination, and Muddy is out by a vote of 6-1. However, he does take it well and wishes the rest of the Dia tribe the best before leaving. But as the day begins to end and a full moon rises, a howl could be heard, which gets the attention of some of the campers, including Chime, who goes off to investigate, only to find out that it was coming from Sai, deep in the forest, who looked more feral and was pissed off. So, Sai is a werewolf, and as the bear rushes in to attack, she throws it into a tree to knock it out with ease. Chime asks if she's okay, and Sai tells her to leave, since, quote-unquote, no one should see her like this.
I know how to do that when you leave a loud enough howl. Anyways, why are you upset? You just suplexed a bear. That's kick-ass.
But Sai just grits her teeth.
You think I could ever be happy? I was ostracized because of physical limitations, mocked for my passion, and turned into a creature of the Nightwing Force. All I am is a monster.
But it's with this shouting that it wakes the bear up, and it charges towards Chime. Sai tries to run towards Chime, but as soon as she takes a couple steps forward, the bear is decapitated, and Chime has a pitchfork in her hands.
You call yourself a monster? I spend some of my time torturing the souls of those who traumatize kids, take the lives of those too early to die, engage in massive destruction for the sake of progress that can be undone in the time I finish this sentence, and those who steal Patreon stuff. That form allowed you to break past your physical limitations and gave you a chance to reach your goal. Take that form with pride, not shame, Sai.
After this speech, Sola emerges from the nearby bushes.
Yeah, Sai, you may have been dealt a bad hand, but you have an opportunity to turn that hand into something positive for your life. You're not a monster. You're a person.
Sai fell silent on this. Could they be right? After a bit of contemplating, she sighed and apologized to the two. But Sola and Chime just hugged her for a bit until she got it out of her system. Once the tears were gone, Sai carried the two back to camp just as the sun was about to rise, which reverted Sai back to normal and reverted her position from standing to face planting. But they had a good laugh about it, and the three just walked the rest of the way to the dorms, with the other contestants chalking it up to a weird prank by Noir. Speaking of Noir, however, he shows up and tells them that today is a free day, so they can relax and chat without worrying about going home. The challenge will be the next day. So what do some people do with this free day? Well, Glide decides to have a dance party to break the ice with the rest of his team, and also as a way for everyone to break team lines for a bit and form bonds with people. It takes a little bit to get going, but everyone begins to join in on the idea as the hour goes by. Glide shows off his sick dance moves and gets everyone hyped up, and he then challenges Soul to join in on the action, and after a little bit of prodding, Soul puts his book down and has a dance-off with Glide, where everyone sees that Soul has some skills in the art of the concertos dance, and even caps it off with what looks to be spirits emerging from the ground to join in with Soul on the dance. This gets everyone clapping as well as Glide before asking everyone else if they wish to join in, and Leaf decides to take him up on the offer. Her style isn't anything special, but she's having fun, and everyone begins to vibe with it for a bit. But as this is going on, Soul is approached by Chime, and the two strike up a conversation.
Didn't think you, of all people, would go for a break, Soul.
Well, even I have limits, Chi, just as you do.
Well, on your next break, maybe teach me some of those moves.
After a bit of prodding, the two had a good laugh about it before this got Soul's attention and decided to join the two in on their conversation.
Oh, so how do you two know each other? Oh, we're co-workers. I torture the souls, and this guy sends them to their appropriate locations. Man, that's a crazy way to describe HR.
The two also had a good laugh about it before Soul explained what they actually do.
Put simply, I am one of many who send the souls of the deceased to either the world above or below, and Chime is one of the people involved with punishing the bad souls.
This reveal left Soul speechless. These two were involved with the deities of the dead? But why would they be here? Noticing this, Chime put a hand on Solar's shoulder and smiled.
Relax, we're only here to get some relaxation and have some fun. Not everyone here comes on a show like this to win money, after all. Anyways, let's have some fun.
After a moment, Sola smiled, and the two decided to have a dance with Sai after Leaf's attempt at dethroning Glide on the floor didn't exactly go too well. Sure, the three style of dancing wasn't all that flashy or great, but they were enjoying themselves, and that's what mattered to them the most in that moment. After they left, Rose asked if she could join in on the dance-off, and Glide just gave her a big grin and motioned her to come on down. It took her a moment to get in the rhythm, but once she did, she started to have fun as her style was more so reminiscent of ballet, and then when she was done, she did feel a slight pain in her legs, but she was bearing it with a smile. Glad she got the opportunity to do that once again before leaving to get an ice pack. But Lumi stops her and asks her to sit before proceeding to release some of the pressure on Rose's legs by using an ice pack and also through massaging the joints on her legs, which surprisingly works out and a lot of the pain Rose was feeling dissipates. Anyways, as those two talk, Prue and Nate decided to take on Gly, but since they did it at the same time, Gly decided to indulge both of them by saying they should work as a team then. The two looked to each other before turning back to Gly and accepting the offer. Nape's style was more so focused on square dancing, while Puru's was more focused on flamenco dancing. But once the two held each other's hands and joined together, their style was somehow blended together, and they managed to keep in sync to the beat and make their odd union of styles work on the battlefield of dance through their creative but wacky moves, amazing the cast and Gly, but not winning over him in the end. But the two had a good time, ending with a high five before leaving the stage. In the end, Gly was still the king of the dance, but it was a good bonding moment for the cast as they got to communicate with other people on the island and have some fun all the while, even if it was temporary. As the party started to die down and the others retreated to the dorm for rest, Pachi opted to go get more wood for the fire, leaving Brio and Luke to look after it until he gets back. The two start to chat while they wait, and things start off fine, but it's when they ask each other about their careers that things get a bit heated.
I work as a fashion model, but it doesn't pay as much as you'd think.
How so? I would assume someone like you gets a lot of offers to model.
And I do, whenever the agency hauls me out to do some modeling.
After some silence, she sighs and asks Luke to sing a copyrighted song. Luke is confused by this, but Brio explains it's to make the footage on the cameras unusable for TV, so he does so, and Brio explains her frustration.
They market me as a plus-size black model. Great for advertisers and people who cry diversity in the industry, not so great for the people running the agency. For every 4 fashion shows, there's one where I get used, and that's only to assure the advertisers that I still work there. It stings because it makes me feel like I'm not good enough, that I'm just a statistic, that I am as an object hauled out to distract people or shoving me back in the figurative closet. There's nothing I can do about it until my contract expires, which isn't for a long time.
After venting out her frustrations, Luke is told to stop singing, and after a moment of silence, he decides to reply. Feeling not good enough? You're just a statistic? Yeah, I can relate to that hard. When Zanleaf and I were growing up, I was told that I had to act a certain way in order to get taken in by a family, and I did so, but I was always ignored and chastised for not acting the right way, for not appealing to their imaginary checkboxes. Eventually, the orphanage stopped getting kids, and they blamed the 3 of us for it, so they just closed it down and told us we can die for all they care. Now, obviously, we're still here, but the point is, I understand your frustration, and if you need a hand figuring out a way to solve it, I got your back. Brio nodded her head before she replied.
Well, I hope you got my friend too.
The two chuckled for a bit before Pachi returned with the wood and smiled, glad to see the two getting along. And now we'll move on to the next day, more specifically, the challenge, which is basically wrestling someone off the circle with padded bags, and whichever of the two teams has the most points after 5 rounds, wins. So basically, one has to sit out on Dia, and 2 has to sit up for the other 2 tribes. Sai volunteers to sit out since it'd be unfair to the others, Rose and Zan sit out for Kia, and Amphi and Lumi sit out for Gira, Lumi commentating that they'll get the first aid kits. Anyways, on to round 1. Gly versus Nape versus Lade. Gly's knocked off almost immediately by Nape, and the match between the latter and Lade is close at points, with the two nearly falling out of the ring, but Lade is able to get one lucky shove at Nape and secure the win, the two shaking hands afterwards for a good match. Round 2. Lop versus Chime versus She. Chime shoves Shia off with ease, but it's a little more tricky when it comes to Lop due to having the higher endurance. It's another close match, but despite a good slam to the gut and nearly getting knocked out, Chime recovers enough to shove Lop out of the arena and secure a point for her team. Round 3. Char versus Luke versus Sol. Despite the disadvantage, Char is able to knock out Sol, but Luke then takes out Char, winning the point. Round 4. Esp versus Leaf versus Peru. Peru does an interesting strategy in that she bobs and weaves the strike Esp gives her, causing her to lose stamina after a bit, and giving Peru a chance to knock her out of the round, but when facing Leaf, Leaf gets behind Peru and aims for her heels, knocking Peru off balance, for a bit, at least, and giving Leaf a chance to knock her out of the ring, scoring another point for Gira. Noir, noticing the points on Gira, decides that Gira has already won the challenge, and will instead focus on a member from the other two teams to decide who gets second. Brio rolls her eyes at this, but ultimately shrugs it off since it means her team is safe. So now it's time for the second place deciding round. Sola versus Pachi, which Pachi immediately steps out of the ring for, annoying his team. Noir then chimes in.
No, Gira, that's my fault. I forgot your team had less females on it, and 2 of them sat out.
Noir then proposes a solution. Pachi sits out, and Lumi takes his place. Pachi's cool with it, and Lumi sighs before putting down her book and taking up Noir on his offer. So now it's even. The two are also evenly matched in terms of the fight, but eventually there has to be a winner, and Lumi is the one to push Sola out of the ring, tying it up. So to break the tie, Noir tells both teams to pick their strongest member that hasn't sat out, and whoever wins that gets second place. Char volunteers, but Esp, still mad about her loss to Puru, decides to put herself up, much to the annoyance of her team. Esp tells them that if she loses they can vote her out, no protests or fight, and after a bit of silence they ultimately agree, and Esp is chosen to fight against Nape. The two wish each other luck, and the fight is on. Nape almost immediately has Esp on the ropes, and is about to be knocked out, but S slams him hard in the legs and begins to shove him back to the middle of the arena. Nape fires back with a stomach shot, which makes S lose her balance a bit, but quickly regains it and slams Nape in the face, sending him back, but then he does the same to her and sends her to the ground, but she holds on hard, Nape barely being able to move her, and then she trips him up, causing him to hold on now as she tries to push him back before stepping back a bit and waiting for Nape to get up, giving her the chance to hit him in the shoulder and disorient him. But just as Nape is about to be wrung out, he hits her in the head and sends her back to the ground. He decides to move behind S to push her out of the ring, but just as he begins to move, S hits him with another stomach shot and uses the last of her strength to move the dazed Nape out of the ring, winning the round for her team, but barely. After shaking off the damage, the two give each other a handshake before returning to their respective teams. So yeah, Gira's lost the challenge and has to send somebody home. She, Lumi, and Puru agree to vote out Pachi, but after they disband, Puru goes to talk to Amphi and Rose, who were still undecided on who to vote out, and she says that they should get rid of Nape. Amphi asks why, and Puru says it's because he's a risk to the females of the team, and he threatened to beat her up if she talked to Amphi about it. They said they'll consider it, but after leaving, Rose decides to go for a walk to collect her thoughts. Amphi asks Rose if she'd like a companion for this, but Rose says she'll be fine. Over with Pachi and Sol, they were thinking about who to vote out when Puru walks up covered in dirt and suggested to the two that they should take out Amphi since she got physical after the challenge and is threatening to go after Nape. Lumi comes in to check for any bruises, but while that's going on, Pachi and Sol begin to consider their options. Lumi says there isn't any, but Puru says that it was recent so it hasn't formed yet. Lumi says that may be true, but there'd still be some damage and she isn't seeing it. Puru and Lumi get into an argument about it, but are pulled away by Sol and Pachi before it could get any worse. And while all this is going on, Nape is napping. Oops. Anyways, elimination time. And unlike the Mighty Boot, this one is not so simple. Pachi gets 2 votes, Lumi gets 1 vote, and surprisingly, Nape only gets 1 vote. So who gets the other 3? Well, Puru, much to her shock. She gets pissed at Lumi for lying to her team about abuse, but Lumi tells Puru to shut the fuck up, and Noir brings in one of the doctors to check the spots Puru was saying Amphi hit earlier, only to find out that she had no damage to the spots, and also pulled up footage that showcased Puru getting herself dirty before going over to talk to Pachi and Sol. But seeing this revelation gets Amphi upset, and is about to give Puru a piece of her mind, but Rose steps in front of her.
You'll only make her a martyr by doing that. Just let the public deal with her, Amphi.
Amphi is still not happy with this, but ultimately sighs and sits down while Puru walks off and heads home. This, however, would not be the last of Amphi for this day, as later that night she goes over to Nape Storm, and after some convincing with San, Nape comes outside, and Rose, on a walk, decides to join in for extra protection.
Listen, Nape, what the hell is your deal with me? I know you've had some beef since I stepped on the island, so spill.
Nape, without a second thought, goes on the attack.
Well, I shouldn't I be angry at the woman who killed my brother. Him and my dad was all I had left, and you took one of them away from me. And what's worse, you got away with it all, 'cause they didn't believe someone like you would do it. What a fucking joke.
After blurting that out, the others fell silent for a moment before Amphi sighed and took off her eye patch. There was nothing in that eye socket except a dark void, and burn marks on her face the eye patch covered.
You can believe this or not, but your brother abused me. He tortured me, made me feel inhuman, used me as a flesh doll, and whenever I spoke out against him, he'd electrocute me. Unlike what Puru said to us and the rest of the team, this isn't for sympathy or to target someone else. I'm saying this to tell you to throw whatever hatred you have for me the fuck out. Hell, when I asked him what his family was like, he told me he had a Down syndrome brother, and a father who'd sooner be with his beer than his family.
Nape's eyes widened at this statement, and after ripping him a new one, Amphi let out a bit of vomit, leading Zan and Rose to come to her aid. Once that was done, Nape decided to close his eyes, and responded. You know,
After what you mentioned and described in explicit detail, I'll admit it's possible that he was hiding that kind of nature underneath. There's something that still doesn't add up. The two of us were officers, sworn to protect the place. How could someone like that do all this?
Well, how'd you end up in prison then?
Nape then sighed. The two of us were assigned to deal with a cartel bust. This guy had taken several hostages, and we were assigned to rescue them, so we split up to cover more ground. When I met back up with him, he was bleeding heavily, and the leader of the cartel was dead, alongside the hostages. With no evidence certain if the hostages died by the cartel leader or not, and my brother in critical condition and fighting fast, the case would have caused a shitstorm if there was no one to take the fall. So I told the police and the governor of the place the cartel was in that I was responsible. By going in, shooting the cartel leader, causing them to kill the hostages. But despite my mistake, I begged the police and governor to save my brother's life. They managed to do so, thankfully, but I would serve a minimum of 50 years. However, I was let out after a decade due to insignificant evidence that I did it. And then, I found out my brother was killed by his ex, and here we are. The scene fell silent once more. This was a lot to take in for both parties, but eventually, someone would have to break the silence, and that would be Nape. But even if what you say is true, it still doesn't justify the way I acted towards you since you arrived. And for that, I'm sincerely sorry. I clearly still have a lot to learn, and I will do whatever it takes to make things right.
I believe that. It's clear that we were both manipulated by him, and it's more so his fault that we got into this mess. But enough of this moping. It's not going to get us anywhere. Let's just try and move forward from this.
Nape smiled. I agree. The two hugged before Nape headed inside to get some sleep, the others doing so moments later. But on their way back to the cabin, Rose confided in Amphi that she might need some help with a similar situation on her end after all this is over, and before she could elaborate, Amphi patted Rose on the head and assured her that she will do whatever she can to get her away from her monster.
But how did you... I saw how you were protective of not showing your arms. That's one of the signs.
Rose smiled and thanked Amphi before the two retreated to their dorm for the night. Alright, on to the next day, where Lumi goes for a swim, and after getting dry, she notices Zan near the dock, and the two decided to talk. Things go normally, and the two seem to get along just fine, but when it comes to their pasts, things get complicated.
Luke, Leaf, and I aren't related, but we formed a familiar bond at that shack, because all we had left after it closed was each other. So Luke and I stepped up to make sure Leaf would be okay, and then Leaf helped us keep the place from being torn down through her big brain. Leaf always loved reading those big books.
Lumi chuckled at this.
Sounds like the big bad edgelord has a soft spot after all.
But Zan just shrugged.
Just because I'm angry at the world for what it dealt me doesn't mean that I have to be angry all the time. That shit can be draining after a while. So having something positive, even if it's small, helps a bit. And that positive bit is Luke and Leaf.
Fair. I guess things aren't so simple with people after all.
Yeah, when you take your nose out of the book once in a while, you see that the world has many layers to it.
Surprised you could see those layers, one-eyed Zan.
Didn't know you were into not safe for work, Lumi.
Before Lumi proceeded to shove him in the lake inside.
You are so weird.
Before she then gave him a smile and helped him back up, only for Zan to drag her into the water. But the two had a good laugh about it before proceeding to go and dry themselves off. Anyways, Char tells us Travis' backstory, and the tribe is cool with it and is glad he told them about it before they opt to give their stories as well, making the tribe closer as a result. While this is going on, however, Amphi and Rose are spending some time together, as well as Luke and Brio and Sai, Chime and Sola. But enough about character stuff, let's get into the challenge. They have to move a big-ass plastic snake through a series of obstacles, and while this is going on, they will occasionally be pelted with water balloons to throw them off balance and make them drop it. First two teams to the end wins the challenge. Nothing much of note happens during this challenge at first, but as time goes on and as the water begins to accumulate, the three teams begin to have difficulty carrying the snake and end up dropping it at various points. Nape suggests to his team to put a good chunk of the weight on their shoulder to lessen the slip, and Late suggests to put the snake under their arms to lower the chance of it falling, but as for Team Kia, well, Chime tries to throw out a suggestion, but Gly and Brio shoot it down since they're far behind the other two and need to catch up. And in the end, it doesn't even matter because the Dia and Gira tribes win, and the Kia tribe is sent to elimination. Leaf asked Chime what the idea was, and Chime brought up that they could use their free hands to block the balloons and lessen the impact on them. So after a brief moment of silence, Leaf sighs and admits that could have worked in securing them a victory. Oops. But it's time to decide who goes, so the team splits up and talks about their options.
Brio and Glide suggest voting out Rose since she was the weakest in the challenge. Luke and Zan talk to Chime, and they think about voting out Rose as well, but Rose talks to Leaf in private and thinks that maybe they should send home Brio, since Brio might be planning to vote her out. Leaf says she'll think about it, but comes to a different conclusion, so she gathers her brothers and Rose and throws out her idea.
I've heard Rose's name being thrown around, but if we're voting for her because she's weak, why don't we vote for Gly instead? At least Rose tried in the challenge. All Gly has been doing is giving us great vibes, which is great for morale, useless if we keep losing.
Luke and Zan say they'll give it some thought, but Gly overhears this idea and goes to Brio and Chime about Leaf's plot to take him out and suggests voting her out instead. So now things are getting interesting. Chime doesn't really care either way, but Brio spills to Luke about Gly's idea and is not too happy about it. Leaf and Zan are told about it, but instead of confronting him directly, Leaf says not to worry about it since it's just drama that they don't need to deal with. Luke and Zan protest this, but Leaf stands her ground.
If I leave because of that purple dancing twink, so be it. At least I got swinging.
Now it's time for elimination. Surprisingly, Chime, Zan, and Luke are the only ones with no votes here. So the votes read:
Brio, Rose, Leaf, Gly,
Leaf, and the final vote, Gly. But despite this, Gly accepts his fate and wishes his team the best, including Leaf. So, what happened? Well, Luke, Leaf, and Rose voted for Gly, but Brio voted for Rose, Zan voted for Brio, and the other two votes were from Chime and Gly. But I'm sure nothing bad will come of this weird turnout. After that, however, Rose and Amphi are talking about who to take out from their respective teams next, but Amphi begins to vomit again, and Noir decides to bring Amphi to the infirmary unit, with Rose following behind to ensure she's okay. Sure enough, Amphi is okay, but Noir is still in the room after she wakes up.
I was informed this by the producers when I got this job, but it is absolutely essential you inform us if anything comes up medically so that we can help you. This isn't some genetic shit to prevent you from suing us. I mean this because we want to make sure everyone on the island is okay. That being said, the doctors disclosed something to me that you were either not aware of or neglected to tell us, and I want to hear from you first. Why?
Amphi sighs before looking down at her stomach.
I thought something was up with me when I was coming to the island, but I didn't know about it fully. So I guess that piece of shit left one final parting gift after all.
Noir puts his hand on Amphi's shoulder.
We value your safety just as much as anyone else here, and the challenges are only going to get more demanding from here on out. I don't want to put you through that, the staff doesn't want to put you through that, and I'm sure you don't want to put them through that either. So I'm sorry, but we have to pull you from the game.
Amphi nodded her head. As Noir went to grab the others, Rose held Amphi's hand.
It's gonna be okay, Amphi. You said you'd help me get away from that monster, and now it's my turn to help you deal with your own. If you need any help, I'm here.
Amphi smiled.
Thank you, Rose.
And so, with the rest of the team coming in and being informed of the situation, Amphi was medevac from the game. But despite this, the team told Amphi they would do their best in her absence, and she shot them a thumbs up before leaving. Alright, let's move on to the next challenge. Teams have to paddle to shore while one member of each team can try to slow down the other teams by shooting out fog bombs via a launcher. First two teams, yada yada yada, anyway, splat time or something like that. S tries to shoot at the Kia tribe, but ends up missing the first time, and ends up hitting her own team on the second try. So, Solo then tries her hand at it, but ends up hitting the Gira tribe, and quickly sits down while she, annoyed, shoots back at them. As this is going on, the Kia tribe takes advantage of the chaos and speeds towards the shore, winning the challenge. Just when Gira is about a few meters from shore, however, they're blasted by 3 fog bombs consecutively by the Dia tribe, and to their surprise, it was from Char, who readies another shot. She is about to fire another shot, but the 2 fog balls collide and blind both teams as a result. Gira and Dia try to work their way through the fog, but to no avail, as both teams were hit by more fog bombs in the moments where there's decent visibility, making it worse for them as a result. It gets so bad that Pachi and Nape snap at She to stop shooting, just row. She protests this since it'll give the opposite team free shots at them, but Sai points out that all she's doing is fucking them over by doing this. Annoyed, she gives up and resumes rowing. By the time the fog is clear, the winning team has reached the shore, and it is the Gira tribe, sending Dia back to the elimination ceremony. Sai and Solo think about voting out Esp for her failure in the challenge, while Esp and Lop think of taking down Char, since this story makes him a threat for later on. As for Char and Lade, they think about taking down Lop since she has contributed the least on their team, but when Solo is talking to Esp about the idea to take down Char, Char overhears this and is none too happy. So at elimination, we have a tie between Char and surprisingly Sola, with Esp only getting 1 vote and Lop getting 1 vote as well. As for the revote, the tiebreaker of the season, The votes read Char, Sola, Sola, Sola. Sola is surprised about this while Sai is mad, but before things get heated, Sola grabs Sai's hand,
It's fine, Sai. Just kick some ass for me, okay?
the two giving each other a hug before Sola leaves. So what gives? Why did Char only get one vote in the revote? Well, Espen and Lop didn't want a deadlock, and they thought Sai would vote for Sola, not knowing of their friendship with the latter. Well, that idea didn't pan out well since Sai forms an alliance with Char and Lade after the elimination in response to what happened. That's a big oops. Espen said this frustration to Lop, but Lop tries to reassure her that they just gotta make it to merge, and then deal with those three then. This doesn't really help ease Espen's concerns, but she will try not to worry about it.
Maybe try and draw some of your concern away.
Esp rolled her eyes at the pun, but appreciated the idea and went off to go draw for a bit, where she stumbled into Sol doing the same thing. The two chat for a bit about their hobbies and what they do, and things go along pretty well, until a ghost appears and this terrifies Esp. Sol just sighs and reaches into his jacket to pull a stamper, hitting the spirit with it and sending it away.
So uncivilized.
Sol then puts his stamp away and resumed drawing, but Esp was more confused about what happened, which leads into Sol spilling that he is one of many who judges the souls of the dead.
So why are you here then?
Sol shrugs.
I needed a vacation, and this sounded like a good idea. And surprisingly, it has been a good time so far, minus the occasional drama.
I'll say. Sai's werewolf shit, Amphi's medevac, Nape's backstory about his bro dying. But despite that, it has been a good time so far.
Sol looks at his book for a moment before closing it and responding.
Interesting.
He then gives Esp a smile, and the two resume drawing before going their separate ways. As this is going on, Luke is chopping some wood. Pachi notices this and is about to go over and chastise him, but he notices that Luke is doing it right this time, and Pachi smiles.
Good to see you took my advice, big guy.
Yeah. Brio suggested I try doing something physical to make me appreciate my body more, and, not gonna lie, someone helping.
Well, that's relief. So does she have any issues you're helping with?
Yeah, she's trying on various outfits, and I'm helping her appreciate her body more through compliments and positive reinforcement.
Well, hope that works out.
Patchy is about to leave, but Luke asks him something. You know, Patchy, how come you haven't told us about your past? You've been pretty quiet for a while.
Because there's nothing to talk about in terms of the past. I showed up to give this thing a shot, and that's it. Not everyone is suffering on this island due to their past, Luke. Some of us have moved past it and just vibing. By the way, you might want to pull your shirt down. We could see a stomach.
Luke noticed and pulled it back down. Oops. Thanks, man. Pachi just snickered.
Yeah, no problem, Large Luke.
Alright, let's get to the next challenge, which is an interesting one since the contestants swim out to a platform in the middle of the sea ocean thing and have to hit a big-ass bingo board that is very far away. And as such, getting ammo for it requires teamwork as well as the team having to aim and use the slingshot for it. Now here's where things get spicy. If one tribe hits a bingo on the board, they will be the only ones safe, while the other two have to send someone from their teams home. If a bingo isn't hit, however, by the time the board is filled up all the way, whoever has the most hits before the board is filled will be the first team safe, and then whoever has the second most will be safe, sending only one team to elimination. So basically, it's a challenge that requires them to work quick and precise. In execution, however, this takes about 4 hours to do so because all three teams kept missing their shots at points, and they had to take breaks due to the weight of the ammo or the slingshot. In the first 20 minutes, however, Sai does manage to hit the board finally, followed by Chime on the Kia tribe, and Gira scores a point in the first hour, but by that point, Sai hits another point for Dia, putting her team in the lead. But Chime swipes away Dia's first chance at a bingo with her next successful shot. It's basically between Dia and Kia at this point for this challenge, and even that takes a while due to the weight I mentioned earlier. Gira is trying to snipe away the other two teams' chances of bingo, but the result is up in the air since they're missing a lot of their shots, and the ones that do hit are far away from Dia or Kia's tiles to run any bingos for the time being. But that's when she comes up with an idea.
Why don't we fire our shots at Dio or Kia's shots instead of the board? With our ammo, it should ricochet and screw up their momentum and either give us the point instead or sink both.
Without any better ideas, the team goes along with it, and they hit Dia's next shot and manage to move it away from the board, but both sink. The next attempt manages to score Gira a point instead of Dia, and the attempt after that utterly backfires as it ricochets Dia's shot into one of the columns that they have 3 hits on, meaning that Dia is close to a bingo. But despite this, Gira keeps on trying this technique, while Leaf takes advantage of the chaos and starts setting up a bingo for her team, managing to get a near bingo in the process before Dia and Gira shoot their next shot. Bingo! With that shout, the 3 teams stopped shooting and looked at the board. To their surprise, it was Dia who got it, though Kia was pretty close thanks to Leaf's quick thinking. So, Gia and Kira are heading to elimination. Leaf apologizes to her team for the mistake, but Luke gives her a head pat and Zan reassures her that she did her best. Brio also chimes in.
We got close, Leaf. We'll just have to work harder to get them next time.
Leaf thanks the three before the teams head out to discuss their plans. Chime talks to Rose and Brio about taking out Leaf since those siblings are a threat and need to be dealt with, and she knows one of them voted for her last time. Brio is unsure about that since she just helped them raise her spirits, however.
Maybe, but what good are kind words if she writes your name down so that she can win? You think they won't stab you in the back to get that?
As if trusting you is a better idea. How do we know you won't stab us in the back to get the money?
Priorities, Brio. If we do nothing about them, none of us will get the chance to win.
Roberta, you shut the fuck up.
This is getting us nowhere and we need a name. Look, why don't we go for Zan then?
It's the safest option, and it will stop the two of you from arguing.
The two glare at each other for a moment before turning their heads from the other and facing Rose.
Fine, we'll vote Zan.
Good. Now back off.
Brio goes off to vent to Luke about what Chime said, and while Luke is rubbing her head to calm her down, he begins to think of targeting Chime. Over with the Gira tribe, however, she talks to Lumi and Nape about voting out Soul since he's the most useless, and the two consider it, but after leaving, Nape talks to Pachi about what went down, and he thinks that she fucked them over in the challenge and should go. Nape is unsure what to think, but as he goes to sit down, Soul comes in to take a nap for elimination. But before he goes to sleep, he sees Nape lost in thoughts and he sighs.
You seem conflicted on who to vote out, but it's really not that hard. Just go with what your gut feels is right and go from there.
It's not that simple, Soul, and I don't appreciate you taking this as a joke.
I never said it was a joke, just to not overthink it. That simple.
Nape is about to get into it, but he decides to just go for a walk while Soul takes a nap. Alright, let's get to the Gira elimination first. So with tempers flaring, the votes are read. She, Nape, she, Soul, and the last vote, she. She shakes her head at the result, but ultimately wishes her team luck and tells Nape to get a grip, with Nape telling her to get rid of the dick because she kept fucking things up. She flips Nape off and then leaves. Now it's time for the Kia tribe. Will the trio be separated? Will Brio go? Only one way to find out. The votes read Brio, Chime, Zan, Brio. So yeah, we have a tie, and that means a revote with everyone on the team who didn't get 2 votes, and if that ties, they then draw rocks. So now for the revotes. Chime, Zan and Chime were surprised by the outcome, while Luke and Leaf were surprisingly chill with it. We're only going to be separated for a little bit of time, Luke shrugged.
And besides, it's just a game.
Zan smiled and patted his 2 siblings on the head before wishing his team the best and heads out, but not before running into Lumi one more time, who's fishing on the dock near the boat, and then smirks.
Well, didn't expect to see you get the boot tonight.
You win some, you lose some. It's all good. You gonna be fine on here?
Lumi pulled up her line.
Of course, my life is not impacted by any of you leaving. It just means there's one less person to hang out with here.
Zan then walked over before ruffling her hair a bit.
You got a good head on your shoulders, Lumi. Hopefully I'll be seeing you later rather than soon.
Lumi then changed her smirk into a smile.
You're a real piece of work, aren't you? But yeah, I'll see you around. Who knows? Maybe you'll be one of my patients.
Zan snickered.
Maybe. That'll probably be your only chance to go deep into me.
The two had a good laugh about it before giving each other a hug and seeing each other off. And with that, we're down to 14. But one thing on Chime's mind is, who voted for Zan in the revote? Brio couldn't vote, so that should have been a 2-2 vote. But as she's thinking about it, Luke and Brio are playing some volleyball while Leaf is refereeing. We now move on to the next day, and Nape attempts to make an alliance with Pachi, but he turns him down.
Besides, all you've been doing is putting a target on your ass if you work with me, Nape.
Using this opportunity, Lumi talks to Nape about forming an alliance after Pachi walks off, and the two agree to work together to take out Soul next. Speaking of alliances, Leaf and Rose form one, and they think about dealing with Chime next, while Chime is talking with Brio and Luke about taking down Rose. And what's going on with the Dia tribe? Surprisingly, nothing. Sais was vibing, and Char is teaching Lade about cooking since, Lade's diet was mostly composed of ramen during college.
Lade, you put too much water in this time. It has to be an equal amount of rice and water.
Well, how am I supposed to know how much to put in?
Use a measuring cup.
When did a tape measure merge with a cup? Eventually, the rice was made successfully, and the team got to indulge in Lade's creation.
How many attempts did it take?
Oh, about 200 or 300.
Well, at least you know how to cook rice properly.
Char smiled and patted Lade on the back before also joining in on the meal. Sounds like you know how to make it better, though.
Oh, yeah, but I can feed you some of my rice sometime if you want.
Sure, I'd love to try it out. But the good vibes wouldn't last long with this team, as now it was time for a challenge. One member of each team climbs up a mountain, and then once they reach the top, they have to roll a papier-mâché boulder down the hill and have it land in their respective hole before diving into said hole to pull out a word that spells out their team written on the paper, and then once they get out of the hole with the paper, they have to put it into a machine that will tell them they are safe, and the first 2 teams to do this are safe. Not much of note happens during the first portion. Lady climbs up for Dia, Luke climbs for Kia, and Nape for Gira. And the gap is there for a bit since Nape has experience climbing long things, paused, but they all reach the top of the mountain with like a minute difference between each other, so it's not a noticeable advantage, especially when Lop hops on the paper mache ball to help her team position the ball into the right hole, and they're the first team to dive in. Gira misses the hole on the first attempt, while Kira goes off the track at points in their attempt, but are eventually able to get back on track thanks to Leaf shouting out directions. As for Gira, they get it in after Pachi punches the ball and it lands in the hole by pure accident, dumbfounding the team, but I mean, it works, so they might as well take the advantage while they can, and Kia shows up 5 minutes later. Neither team is getting anywhere at first, but after about 15 minutes, Shar jumps out of the hole and puts his paper in the machine, which rings out that his team is safe. The rest of the team gives Shar a high five. Kia and Gira try harder to find the paper they need. Neither wants to go to elimination again, but in the end, that is what happens as Rose, covered in mud, runs towards the machine and slams her piece of paper into the machine, which activates and says that Kia is safe. Rose raises her fist triumphant before the rest of the team come out of the hole to celebrate. Gira shakes their head, defeated. After a quick shower and debrief, Gira disperses to discuss their plans. Pachi and Nape think of taking out Sol, while Sol goes to Lumi with the idea of taking out Nape, since he's screwing them over more than helping out, but Lumi is unsure and goes to Nape about this information, but he takes it well surprisingly. I kinda figured he'd talk to me eventually. Besides, he's got nothing to lose, so this will be an easy vote. Lumi nods and heads off. At elimination, however, the votes are not so conclusive. The votes read Nape, Sol, Lumi, Sol. Sol shrugs off the result and wishes his team well, but Nape and Lumi are confused about the Lumi vote. Who voted for Lumi? Well, it turns out it was Pachi who threw a vote onto Lumi since he thought she was too much of a swing vote to keep around. Whoops. Later that night, Leaf brings over Rose and Chime to talk about a potential alliance going into the merge, and while Rose is chill with it, as is Chime, after Rose leaves, Leaf is stopped by Chime with a pitchfork near her neck.
So, mind telling me why you voted your brother out, Leaf? You think I wouldn't find out?
But Leaf was surprisingly chill despite the circumstances, and she let out a sigh.
Well, at least someone was paying attention. Why are you so agitated at me? You got the free out that night, and one of your threats were gone. Because if you were so willing to throw one of your brothers under the bus, why should I trust you? Throw? The three of us talked about the possibility of one of us going home that night, and we agreed that it would be fine if we wrote the other's name down if it meant one of us had a shot at winning or getting further. We've been through enough shit to let the reality show vote that hurt our bond. Oh boo-hoo, my ally left. Try getting left behind by your soon-to-be parents because you weren't white enough, or ignored because you were too smart. That's some fucking heartbreak, usted maldita rechoncha, imbecile.
After hearing that, Chime retracted her weapon and walked away to go and snuggle with Sai, Leaf shaking her head in disgust before going off to grab some water. While this is going on, Luke and Brio are trying something different. Instead of Luke helping out Brio with her issues, it's the opposite.
Alright, Luke, so the plan for today is a special one. You're gonna do some push-ups.
Luke blinked in confusion for a moment before proceeding to do so, not noticing Brio walking behind him and sitting on his back while doing the process. Luke felt something off for a moment, but then he just resumed doing some push-ups for a bit until Brio told him to stop.
Alright, pretty good.
Luke then realized the voices coming from behind him and thus startled him a bit while Brio giggled. How did you get over there that fast?
There was something I wanted to test out, so I sat on your back while you were doing push-ups, and sure enough, I was right about something.
So that's what that odd feeling was.
Your issue is that you feel like you're not good enough. That you feel like you're just a big tub of space.
Yes, I don't need the recap.
But look at what you just did. That's not something a tub of space could do, or someone who's bad at things would do. You have the strength to do that, and the compassion to help others. It's not nothing. You should be proud.
But what good is that when I'm an ugly, disgusting fail?
Who cares? There are people out there that are handsome as hell, but are cruel and vindictive. There are those who use their good looks to learn people. There are even people with roadkill for looks that are fine in life and happy. You deserve happiness just as much as everyone else, Luke. It wasn't your fault your parents died. It wasn't your fault with what happened in your orphanage. And it's certainly not your fault you were born this way. You provide so much for them, for our team, Luke. That is not what a failure would do. Did you ever stop to think about why Leaf and Sand look at you as a brother, despite your lack of shared blood? Why they view each other as siblings? Because you helped give them something they lacked for so long. People that care about them. People that love them for who they are. You see yourself as a failure, but they don't see you as one. Our team doesn't see you as one. And I certainly don't. So please, even if it's just this once, be happy with yourself. Because we're happy with you, just the way you are.
Brio was close to tears upon saying this, but Luke knelt down and hugged Brio tightly, tears rolling down his face. Thank you. The two hugged it out for a bit before the tears dried up, and they seemed to let it all out emotionally. After breaking out the hug, they smiled. But just as Brio was walking away, Luke picked her up and put her on his back. I told you I had your back, and now I got your front. The two chuckled before Luke gave Brio a piggyback ride back to her dorm. Alright, enough of the serious shit for a bit. How about a scene where Noir brings in a mechanical bull and the cast each gets a shot at riding the thing with mixed results? While Nape is able to ride the bull the whole time, Lumi gets knocked off really quickly and lands in the lake ocean thingy, while Lop also gets knocked off and lands in a pile of mattresses. Surprisingly, Chime is able to ride the bull to completion without falling off, which surprises some of the team, but impresses the likes of Sai and Esp. Speaking of Team Dia, however, Char walks over to Lade.
Hey, Lade, bet you can't do the bull riding with your shirt off.
Lade rolls his eyes at this. I could, but I have no reason to do so.
But $20 be a good reason.
Son of a bitch, I'm in. So that happened, and he lasted 2 minutes before getting knocked off. But he did get the 20 for his efforts, albeit hidden in his shirt pocket.
So why did you do that? Come on, ass. We both know he wanted to see him shirtless.
I thought it'd be funny, and it was.
Char chuckled before getting tickled by Lade.
And that's pretty much the reason why I brought the bull. You all get the free day, so here's one way to celebrate.
And with that, they all had a good time, and we move on to the next day/challenge, which involves each team in a separate cargo truck with one of them driving, while the rest of them have to get the cargo out of the truck before reaching the finish line. First 2 teams to reach the end wins. Noir then hands those who will be in the truck special boots or in falling off the truck through magnetic shit or something magic. The drivers are informed of the path and have to be kept at a certain speed, or else the boots will activate a protocol that freezes the contestants in place until the speed is returned to normal. And most of the drivers follow this rule, except for Sai, who ends up breaking the gas pedal with her foot and has to be replaced before the challenge starts. Whoops. Lop shakes her head before telling her team that she'll do the driving, and Sai walks away sheepishly. It's an even race in the beginning, but as time goes on, Sai begins to help her team widen the gap as her strength helps lighten the load a bit, and Pachi and Nape try to use their combined strength to shrink that gap, but to no avail until Lumi speaks.
Let's focus on the smaller packages. There may be more of those, but it'll get rid of the weight we need to drop and it'll take longer for us to get exhausted.
Without any other ideas, the team gets started. As for the Kia team, they're not too far behind the Gira tribe, but they can only do so much when competing against Sai and Gira's strategy, which is now putting them in last. By the time they start to pick up the pace, Gira and Dio win the challenge, sending Kia to elimination once again. Luke tries to reassure his team that they did their best, but Chime and Rose walk away. Okay, fuck being positive, I guess, Luke sighed.
Don't worry about it, bro. It just stings to lose again.
Leaf pats Luke on the back with Brio joining in a moment later.
But we'll get those 2 teams next time.
Brio added. Luke smiled and patted both of their heads before dispersing to figure out who they're going to vote for. Chime and Rose think about taking on Luke, but when Leaf comes back, they think about targeting Brio instead. However, when Chime leaves...
Yeah, fuck that. We're targeting Chime.
Can we just pick a target and stick to it?
Sorry, it's just that I don't trust Chime and I'm sure she's targeting my ass.
I get that, but wouldn't it make more sense to take out Brio? Since her and your brother seem to be chummy and could be a risk going into the merge.
I admit Brio's a potential threat, but Chime is a wild card who could flip to the other teams when we merge into one, and then we're screwed. At least with Brio we might have a better shot.
I guess.
Rose responds before walking off. Speaking of Luke, however, Chime decides to talk to him and Brio and suggests taking out Rose.
Give me one reason why I should listen to you, especially after you made my sister upset.
Because she betrayed you and Zan by voting Zan out.
Luke just sighed. Think we give a fuck about being voted out of a reality show? It's just a game. Zan knew that, Leaf knows that, and I, just by me being an imbecile, knows that. Chime was silent for a moment before an idea hit her.
Alright, then why not vote for Leaf? It's just a game, and what's stopping her from making an alliance like she did with Rose and I?
Brio raised a brow at this. Could Chime be telling the truth, or is this a last-ditch effort to save her skin?
Tell you what, I'll vote Leaf, but you and your alliance have to vote for me.
If you speak the truth, then it should be an easy vote out for you, and you weaken Leaf in the process.
But if you're lying, then you better hope I don't vote in the revote.
Luke said while towering over Chime, which made her drop a bit of sweat due to his size, but Chime smiled despite the intimidation.
I'm not lying. I will say, though, it's honorable for you to take the blade for your sister. Not many would do that. For that you have my respect. I'll tell them the plan, then.
Chime walked away while Brio was shaking her head.
Luke, what the fuck?
Wait, what happened?
Luke said while rubbing the back of his head. Brio let it aside.
Let's just decide who we're voting for.
We then cut to elimination. So the votes read: Leaf, Luke, Luke, Chime, Chime. So now it's time for a revote. Luke, Chime, Chime. Luke let out a sigh, while Chime was smirking.
Well, I didn't go down fighting at least. Luke, I respect your move even if it was incredibly ballsy. Leaf, watch your ass in the merge. Brio, kick some ass, girl. Rose, do your best.
The team gave her a hug before Chime left the island. And with that, we have now reached the merge. No more teams, everyone eliminated will be on the jury, and now people are competing for individual immunity. So after a feast celebrating this occasion, Esp and Lop reunite with Leek and Luke before adding Brio to their alliance due to Luke and her forming a bond over the course of the season thus far, though it does paint a target on Brio's back as a result. And now we get into the first merge challenge, holding your breath underwater.
Yeah, I know not the greatest challenge, but something came up.
Anyways, to make a long story short, despite good efforts from people like Nate, Pachi, and Sai, it's Lop that ends up winning this first immunity. So yeah, the merged team disperses to discuss their votes, and as that's going on, Char, Sai, and Lade decide to pick off Esp, Esp's alliance agrees to go after Char, and Leaf/Rose agree to go after Esp. As for Pachi, Lumi, and Nape, they are currently on the fence of going after Char or Esp. Anyways, time for the elimination ceremony, and the votes read: Char, Esp, 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 Char, 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 Esp, Char, Char, Esp, Char. Esp breathes a sigh of relief, while Char just wishes the rest of the team luck. But as Char is on the dock to get on the boat, Lade stops him just in time.
Well, this is a surprise, isn't it?
Lade then smirks. No chance I wasn't gonna let you go. Whew, without saying goodbye first.
Fair point. Despite the crazy start and some of the weird shit in between, I had a good time. It also got to make a new friend. Hopefully I won't be seeing you on the jury for a while. Until then, try not to burn the place down.
Try not to miss me too much.
I promise. For now, though, I'll leave you with a gift you can either accept or return to me when we meet again.
What is it? Char then kisses Lade on the cheek and proceeds to take a step back. Lade is silent for a moment, blushing in embarrassment, but is able to collect his thoughts a moment later and smiles. You could be such a pain in the ass, you know that?
How do you think we got along so quickly?
The two share a good laugh before giving each other a hug, and Char leaves. We cut to the next day, and Lumi talks to Nape about their next target.
I think we should target Rose next.
And what's stopping Rose from telling Leaf and letting her telling everyone in her alliance about it?
They have no reason to target me. I'm nobody on their radar at the moment. This is the best time to strike.
I guess. Alright. While we're with Esp's alliance, they were thinking of targeting Nape since he's a threat, while Lade and Sai think of taking out Lop next time, until Nape comes in and suggests Rose. And now for a challenge. They have to run through a maze, getting 3 bags of puzzle pieces, and then return to their board. First one to finish their puzzle wins. Not much of note here happens outside of Pachi and Leaf pulling an early lead in the race to get the pieces, and Rose working quickly on the puzzle after a slow start and getting lost in the maze for a while, but in the end, Lade manages to win the challenge. As everyone else disperses to finalize their votes, Rose and Leaf have a chat.
What's on your mind, Rose?
I know you suggested Nape, but I think we should suggest either Luke or Pachi. Luke is a massive threat, and Pachi could have the pull to sway the jury to his side if he makes it to the end.
Leaf ponders this for a moment before reaching a decision.
I agree. We'll vote Pachi tonight, and hopefully that pans out.
The two shake hands before going their separate ways, but as Rose is walking away, she bumps into Brio returning from fishing on the dock.
Oh, hey Rose, what's up? Just taking a walk. So, how's the modeling agency? Not subtle, are you?
She gives Rose the backstory, and Rose is silent for a moment before giving a response.
I mean, you're not really plus size, though. I'm not going on a Wait, what'd you say? Well, you're not exactly what my company defines as plus size, just a medium.
Brio looks at her with a dumbfounded expression before giving a response.
That's... what? That's stupid. Maybe, but so is the modeling industry. The amount of stories I've read about models ending their lives because they aren't skinny or cute enough can be counted on each stitch of my shirt. But I can help you get out of that little contract of yours. Let's just say I have some strings I could pull. And I could put you into my company. Some standards would have to change if you want to go for that plus size model, but it's not like we're talking obesity or anything, far from it. And you'd have more appearances, and be paid better. The choice is ultimately up to you at the end of the day, Bria, but in the end, don't you deserve happiness, just like how you wish for Luke to be happy?
Brio sheepishly nodded after a moment of silence.
Alright, good. Be happy with yourself, and your body will follow suit. Plus-sized, skinny, whatever you're cool with, you should go for it.
Alright, on to the elimination. Char smiles at seeing Lade immune, since, well, yeah, the jury's watching the eliminations, and now we get to the vote. Lop, Sai, Lop, Sai, Rose, Pachi, 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 Rose, Rose, Rose. Esp was confused about the way the votes went, but Rose took it on the chin and gave the remaining cast a hug before leaving, wishing them the best of luck. Okay, so what happened? Well, Sai and Lade voted for Lop, Lop and Esp voted for Sai, Pachi got votes from Leaf, Brio, and Rose got votes from Luke, Pachi, Nape, and Lumi. However, Leaf wasn't happy with Rose getting voted out, and goes to Lade's alliance to talk about a potential partnership.
So, who do you think voted out Rosie?
I think Lumi was responsible.
Lade raises a brow at this.
Yeah. Alright, Leaf. We'll give you a hand.
Leaf smiled, and the three shook hands on the matter. We cut to the next day, and it's time for a special challenge. The final 10 are split into 2 teams, and both teams will be going to separate eliminations. However, the winning team does get a spa day before going to said ceremony. So the challenge involves the 2 teams having to play sea basketball, and the first to get 5 balls on the other team's net will win. So the teams are Pachi, Leaf, Lumi, Sai, and S for Team 1. And for Team 2, we have Nape, Lop, Luke, Lade, and Brio. So Team 2 washes out Team 1, correct? Well, no, actually. It's actually pretty close. Thanks to Esp and Leaf thinking fast, Sai blocking a lot of the shots from people like Luke and Nape, and Pachi being able to reach the net easily alongside Lumi's quick speed. In the end, they managed to get 4 points and are about to score the last one, but Lop dashes past Sai in the last moment and scores the point for her team, securing the victory. So as Team 2 goes on their spa date, the other team breaks into their respective factions to figure out who they're going to vote for. Sai's alliance has an easy vote, Pachi and Lumi think about targeting Leaf, and S/Leap think about going for Sai tonight. Meanwhile, on Team 2, they are just enjoying their spa day and not really thinking up anyone to vote out yet, which will make for an interesting elimination since they're not really going in with any set plan, as shown with these votes. Lop, Lade, Nape, Brio, and Lade. But despite the strange votes, Lade takes it well. Thanks to the spa day, guys. It was nice. Now kick some ass. They give Lade a hug, and then Lade joins the jury spot, while the rest of Team 2 leaves. Char shakes his head at the results, but admits that at least he won Immunity 1, something Rhodes nods in agreement with, while Lade gives them a goofy grin while rubbing the back of his head. Anyways, on to Team 1's votes, and here are their votes. Leaf, Lumi, Leaf, Lumi, Sai. So yeah, time for a revote. Leaf, Lumi, Leaf. Leaf was surprised by the result. She asks S what happened, and S shakes her head.
Don't underestimate my intelligence, Leaf. Or my word.
Leaf sighs and then gives Esp a hug before wishing the others luck and joins up with the rest of the jury, while the rest of the team heads back to the dorm. Needless to say though, Luke is not happy, but instead of snapping at Esp over it, he just decides to let it go. It's not worth getting angry. I'm just gonna focus on reaching the end. Brio goes over to see if he's okay, but he assures her that he'll be fine, and the two hug before going over to their dorms for the night. The next day, Esp talks to Luke about the vote, but he just says not to worry about it. Let's just focus on who we're voting for next, okay? Esp rubs the back of her head, but ultimately agrees, and brings Luke over to the rest of the Alliance where they plot out that Nape should go next. Only for Nape to win the next immunity. Whoops. So with that plan blown out of the water, Esp and Lop have to come up with somebody else. Esp thinks of blaming for Pachi, and the others do agree, except for Lop, who thinks this might be a good time to ask Lumi to get some brownie points at the jury, and so she goes over to Pachi and Sai and suggests to them the idea, and they decide to think about it. Lumi, however, catches wind of this plan and goes over to Luke and Bria to tell them what Lop is doing, which throws their plan for a loop, and Esp has to come in and defuse the situation, or at least attempt to.
Listen, Lumi, none of us are gunning for you. All you're doing is getting paranoid, and that'll fuck you over. Shut up, Esp! You don't think I recognize the tactics of gaslighting? That's a common one.
Esp then slaps Lumi.
Motherfucker! You're nobody on my radar. Until now, you bitch!
Lumi slaps her in response, and the two are about to throw hands, but Brio shoves Esp to the ground while Luke gets in Lumi's way.
That's enough, you two. Back the fuck away from each other!
Brio barked out. As S got up and dusted herself off, she spit on the ground before walking away. Lumi sighed and then turned the other way, leaving Luke and Brio alone to deal with the aftermath. You think Lumi is telling the truth about what Lop did?
I can believe it, but at this point, I don't even care. Let's just get this vote over with.
Yeah, that's fair. And so the elimination ceremony was upon us once again. But before we get to the votes, Nape stands up. Hey, Noir, I'd like to give up my immunity. This floors the final 8 and surprises Noir for a moment. Okay, so who would you like to give it to? He then takes off the necklace and gives it to Lumi. Let's spice things up. Alright, Nape is no longer safe, but Lumi is. This floors the others, while Lumi thanks Nape for the gift. Even the jury is whispering about this move.
The fuck is he thinking?
Looks like Nape is doing some jury management.
That won't do much good if he's on the jury tonight. What an idiot.
Esp asks Lop what they should do via whispers, and she throws out Pachi's name just in case Nape has something to ensure his safety, but then Luke chimes in saying that Sai is the biggest wildcard next to Pachi and should vote for her, but they're unsure if that's the right move. Over with Pachi, Sai talks to him about voting out someone from Esp's side, and Lumi throws out Esp's name, but Sai is unsure until Nape whispers a suggestion that makes them curious. And now the votes. Brio, Nape, Sai, 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 Brio, Brio, Brio. This surprised everyone, even the jury. But Brio, after a moment of shock, wished her alliance the best, gave Luke a hug, and left, with S glaring at Nape, who breathed a sigh of relief that he was safe. Needless to say, however, S Alliance was gunning for Nape just as hard as they were for Lumi after that vote, and they needed unity the most going forward, since that's what cost them Brio that night. The next day, it's time for another challenge. But this time it's a challenge whose reward is getting to see their loved ones for a bit, and they even get a preview of the family member before the challenge begins. So Sai gets to see her sister, Luke gets to see Zan, S gets to see her dad, Lop gets to see her grandma, Nape gets to see his dad, Lumi gets to see her best friend, and after that, Noir is about to explain the challenge.
Noir, what about Patchy?
Noir is silent and Patchy decides to chime in.
There isn't one for me, so can I opt out of this one?
The cast is floored by this. Why didn't you say anything about this sooner?
It happened a long time ago and I moved on from it, so I didn't see a need to bring it up. Anyways, you guys do your best on the challenge today.
Patchy then takes a seat nearby.
Yeah, we're sorry, Patchy. It's all good. No need to sour the mood. Just because my family isn't here doesn't mean the others should have their chance to see their folks ruined.
After a moment of silence, Noir nods and then goes on to explain the challenge, which is holding onto a pyramid-like platform above the water. Last one to fall in wins immunity and a chat with their loved ones. So because of this being a balanced challenge, let's cut to the chase. S manages to beat Nape in a close match as she falls a second after Nape hits the water. So Nape is the next to go? Not exactly. After the visit, which goes well, S throws out the idea to her alliance, but Law points out that they only have 3 members while the rest can outnumber them in the votes. But then S remembers something.
Hold up. What if Sai isn't aligned with those guys? I know she made an alliance with Delayed and Char, but they're out of the game, so it's possible she may be outside that circle. Well, maybe, but we shouldn't risk it. Maybe we should target Patchy or Lumi instead?
But as they're talking about this, Nape and Lumi agree they should target Lop, but after that, Nape decides to go and check up on Patchy, who's just napping.
Hey, Nape, what's up?
Just wanted to say how you're holding up.
Patchy chuckled.
I'm good, but I appreciate the concern, Nape. Like I said, it happened so long ago that I moved.
So what happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, it's fine. I was asleep one night, and then as I was told after the fact, someone broke in and tried to rob us. My folks tried to stop them, but they were stabbed by the person, and then as he ran out, he tripped and set fire to the place. Fortunately, I was rescued in time, but all of my siblings and my parents couldn't be saved. It wasn't easy for me to process, but I was able to get help for that trauma, and now, I spend my days in the forest as a lumberjack.
Wow. So how many fucking kids did your parents have?
Well, let's say me, they had Pika, they had Plu, they had Moo, they had Emo, they had Den, they had Toge, they had Peku, and they had Ami.
Huh. Interesting names. Well, if it's worth anything, I'm glad you're doing okay. And I hope that guy got brought to justice.
Oh yeah, he did. Heard he was part of a cartel and they got shut in a few years back. Nowadays I'd like to start a family, but I'm not too worried about it if I don't. I just want to live life the best way I can.
Understandable. Anyways, we should probably figure out who to vote for.
When was I part of your alliance?
The two had a good laugh about it before Patchy throws a hit suggestion of who to vote out, and Nape agrees. We then cut to the elimination ceremony, and this time, someone doesn't give up their immunity, and we get to the votes. Lumi, Nape, 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 Lumi, Lumi, Esp. Now for the revote. Lumi, Nape, Lumi, Nape, Lumi. Lumi ultimately shrugs it off and wishes Nape luck before leaving. And now we have reached the final 6. So what gives? Why didn't Nape go? Well, it turns out Lumi got votes from Patchy, Nape, and Sai, so ouch, betrayal there. But with that betrayal, it gives S Alliance their second win, as they at least now tie with the others. The next voting ceremony commences. Speaking of, Nape wins the next immunity, so now S has to think of someone else to target. That's when Luke throws out Sai's name. Look, she has the potential to win over the jury, but that's when it hits Esp.
Why not go for Patchy then? He's just as much of a threat.
But Luke is ultimately against that idea, since he thinks Sai could be a bigger problem over Patchy. Ultimately, Esp settles on the plan, but Luke is a bit conflicted. That's when Nape comes in, after Lop and S leave, to offer an alternative. Listen, I think you should vote for Lop. Lop is basically S #1 ally right now, so why not target our enforcer? Luke is unsure of this, but he says he'll think about it. Sai and Patchy talk about how they'll vote for the other if they make it to the end, and then Sai suggests taking out Esp since she could be a threat, and Patchy agrees. But for now, we have a vote to get to. So the votes read, Esp, Sai, Sai, Patchy, Esp, Lop, And we're tied. So now for a revote. Sigh. Esp. Sigh. Sigh smiles and hugs everyone before heading out, wishing them the best of luck. And now the final 5. Esp, Lop, Luke, Pachi, and Nape. But it's after this elimination that Luke decides to break off from Esp's alliance, which surprises the two, but wishes him well. I want to make it to the finals by earning my way, and I don't feel like I'm going to make it to that point by being the third wheel in this alliance.
Yeah, no, I get it. Hopefully you can make it to that final spot, because we're going to be gunning for it as well. Yep, best of luck, Luke.
The three shake hands before Luke walks away, and Esp and Lop discuss their next plan of attack. Pachi asks Nape if he thinks he made the right move, and Nape smiles. Yeah, it was a necessary race to take side in that revote. Well, now Luke is the potential race since he went against my idea, so if I can get him out, that should win me the game.
If you can make it to the end.
True that. I just need to work at it. We then cut to the challenge, which is running to grab puzzle pieces and then putting a puzzle together, and the first to complete said puzzle wins. It's a close match between Esp, Nape, and Pachi, but in the end, Esp is able to squeak out a victory. But as Esp and Lop celebrate their victory, Luke talks to Pachi about the idea of voting out Nape, but Pachi turns that idea down.
Not really interested. Besides, I'd go to race if I were you.
Luke shakes his head before he decides to take a walk and think up how to plan this vote. Speaking of, here's the next vote off. Pachi. Nape. Pachi. Luke. Pachi. Pachi takes the result with a smile and wishes them the best of luck, including Nape, before he leaves. And with that, we're at the final 4. Esp and Lop have Luke and Nape as their targets, while Luke and Nape have each other in their sights. So who will go? Well, after a challenge involving them escaping a prison by having to grab a key using materials near their feet, it's Luke that ends up winning safety from the vote, with Nape just a few seconds behind. So with Luke's target off the back for the time being, the question becomes, will it be a near unanimous vote out for Nape? Well, no. While Esp and Lop consider voting out Nape, Luke thinks it'd be a better move to take out either Lop or S to break out that power duo going into the final 3. And so when the votes come in, it's 2 votes Lop and 2 votes Nape. And during the revote, it's tied again. So now that it's deadlocked, the two will have to make a fire big enough to burn a rope holding back a flame. Yeah, it's basically the fire duel from Survivor. My terrible attempt at hiding that aside, the challenge is very close. First, Nape is leading the charge with a strong base for his flame, but Lop manages to close the gap by using coconut husk and pine needles to get the fire roaring, while making sure the flame has something flammable underneath to keep its height and heat. As the minutes tick by, it could go either way for these two, but in the end, and after several more minutes, someone has to win. And as both flames lick the rope, one is just slightly hotter and the flag rises up, signaling Nape's victory. Nape and Lop go over a job well done before S goes over to hug Lop tight.
I'm sorry, Lop. Hey, it's okay. You're still in the game. You just need to make it one more round, and then you have a chance. Don't waste it now.
S nods before breaking up the hug and promises she'll do her best. Luke gives Lop a hug as well and wishes them the best before heading out. So since I took a lot from Survivor here, does that mean the final 3 will be the last elimination ceremony? Nope. Final 2, baby! And so, after going through a ceremony where the final 3 honor their eliminated contestants, they have to compete in their last challenge, which involves them holding onto a totem pole with one hand and while balancing on a small stool. It's a long, grueling challenge as the heat begins to bear down on the trio. Despite the sweat, and despite the exhaustion beginning to set in, after 4 hours of balancing, they are still holding strong. Until Nape loses balance and tries to use both his hands to maintain his balance, only to realize that he can only use one arm on the pole, and he's out. He takes a seat, and it's now down to Esp and Luke for the final immunity. Another 2 hours pass, and both are sweating buckets as the wind now begins to increase in speed, making their bodies colder and the sweat hit a lot harder, but in the end, after another hour, Luke falls off, and S wins. Quickly jumping down, S goes to check in on Luke, and sure enough, he is okay, just a bit tired. Noir gets everyone rehydrated and gives them some time to recover before they go to the vote, congratulating Esp on the win. So, what happens now? Well, after some time deliberating with the other two, Esp reaches her final decision, and at the elimination ceremony, decides to vote out Luke. But he takes it well and gives the two a big hug before joining the jury. And now, the final ceremony can begin, where the jury will ask questions/statements to the finalists, and depending on the answers, the jury will vote for that person or the other to win. After their opening statements going over their different journeys, S through making alliances and Nape through building bonds and winning challenges, the jury begins to talk to the finalists. Char chews at S for backstabbing throughout the game before proceeding to do the same to Nape, and going in hard since some of those people were either allies to him or friends. He then asks if both regret it.
Yes, it may be a game, and it certainly stinks to break those ties, but if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be here. It's a necessary evil, but it still fills me with regret.
Of course, there are some people up in that jar that could easily be here if I didn't make those moves. Luke, Pachi, Lumi,
and each would have a good reason to win over me. So I made those moves, I own it, and I do regret it.
Rose is next up, and she rips S a new one for turning her back on Leaf, and also not listening to her alliance at points like when Luke brought up voting out Sai, to which S admits was a mistake. But then Rose dips into Nape because she remembered how he acted to Amphi and others in this game, and asked him why she should give him her vote.
I do remember how I treated Amphi, and that's why I changed my attitude after we talked about what went down, because I am not one who ignores their past actions. I accept my flaws, and would like to believe that I've overcome them enough to earn your vote. If it wasn't enough, I'm okay with that, since it just means I have a lot more to learn, which I'm always willing to do.
Rose thanks to both of them for their responses and sits down. Lei congratulates the two for making it to the end, and that's about it. As for Leaf, she flat out tells us that she forgives her for writing her name down since it was a game, and hopes she wins, while also admitting to Nape that she's happy for him to make it this far considering his rough beginning. Brio, on the other hand, congratulates S for making it this far, and then tears into Nape.
You saved Lumi's ass the night she was supposed to go, and we thought about splitting the vote because we believed you had a secret advantage to keep yourself safe. Well, it turns out you did. Our stupidity. However, you then robbed Lumi of that kind act when you voted her out at the next elimination, and then you did it again with Pachi at the final 5. Let me ask you, Nape, are those bonds real, or just a step in your way to this position?
It was 100% real. I wouldn't have sat down to talk with Pachi after the loved one's visit if I didn't care about him as a friend. I wouldn't have sacrificed my amenity to Lumi if it wasn't to show her that I cared about her as a friend. Those votes were hard ones to make since it required me to write their names down. I still did it at the end of the day, but no, those bonds were absolutely real.
Brio nods and thanks to both of them for their response. Sai and Lumi congratulates the two of them for making it to the end, as does Pachi, and finally we have Luke who congratulates Nape for making it to the end, despite being an insufferable shit in the beginning, and then we have his statement to Asp.
I stood by your side for a good chunk of the game, and you treated us like dirt except for Lop. You wrote down Leaf's name like it was nothing. You constantly ignored Brio and I's suggestions in favor of your own. You put up no fight when I was quitting, which came across to me as you not caring. And yet, despite all this, I still respect the moves you made. You worked your ass off to get this far. For that, you have my congrats. It's just the way you got to that point that pisses me off, and I want to get that out of my system.
That is a fair complaint to have with me, and I take full responsibility for not respecting you, Leaf, or Brio enough. That was my mistake, and for that, I'm sincerely sorry.
Luke smiles before wishing the two well and sitting down. So now it's time for the votes. Char votes for Nape. Rose voted for Esp. Lade voted for Nape. Leaf voted for Esp. Brio voted for Esp. Lumi voted for Nape. Sai voted for Esp. Pachi voted for Nape. Lop voted for Esp. And then Luke's vote. He voted for Esp. Esp was surprised by this vote, while Nape smirked and patted Esp on the back, congratulating her on the victory. Lop then ran over to hug Esp on her victory, and then the jury started to join in on the celebrations, as well as Noir. That's all well and good, but what happened after this season? Well, my fingers hurt, so I'm just going to summarize the rest of this because this script is nearly 40 pages long, and my hands hurt. Noir was hired by other shows to be a guest host, and is enjoying his life. Mighty went on to continue music production with his group. Puru lost a few sponsorship deals due to her actions on the show, but gained a whole bunch of supporters for exposing a misogynist like Nape. Yeah, some people are stupid. Glide continues to teach people how to dance, and he got a boost in students due to his time on the show, donating some of his earnings to a cancer charity. Sola got her citizenship approved and is actually in a relationship with Sai and surprisingly Chime, as they help Sola adjust to her new life after all that happened to her. She went back to being a teacher, and that's it. She barely talks to anyone involved in the season and acts as if nothing happened. Zana went back to the orphanage, but began to develop a friendship and later relationship with Lumi while continuing to be a big brother to Luke and Leaf, and he's enjoying his life. Sol went back to his job and ultimately pulled up something very interesting about Amphi's ex when looking through the files one day. Outside of spending time with their two partners, Chime continues to do her job of torturing the terrible, and also enjoying spare time with Sol when the two are on break during the days. Char, thanks to help from Lade and Sai, volunteers in an organization designed to help victims of trafficking, and is glad to be helping those get out of the same situation he was once in. Also, him and Lade hooked up, but that wasn't really a secret at this point. Rose ended up staying true to her word and helped Amphi with raising her child as she sheltered the two in her place for a little bit, and then helped Amphi get a job to help the two financially. While Rose and Amphi were not romantically involved, the two did form a strong friendship after the season ended, and Amphi also lent Rose a hand when helping Rose get out of her abusive home, and also dealing with one other side effect. But yeah, no, the two are enjoying life, and seem to be out of their terrible situation, which is great. Lade also works with Char and is enjoying life just as much as his partner. Leaf also went back to the orphanage, but thanks to her time on the show, she did get a college sponsorship, or whatever it's called, and is currently attending college to try and improve the lives of hers and her brothers. The latter were immensely happy at this announcement. Bria was let go by the agency after it turned out that the company invested too much in digital screenshots, and she was then recruited by Rosa's modeling division. Sure, some changes had to be made, but Bria was cool with it, as was Luke, who was now her partner after the show ended. Bria was happy with her life now, free from those old shackles that was her agency. Lumi went back to being a doctor and is enjoying life while also developing a deeper bond with Zahn, though sometimes it's through him being in the hospital, but the wounds were never serious and the two had a good laugh about it afterwards. Sai grew more accepting of her werewolf side and with the help of her two girlfriends started enjoying more heavy-duty weightlifting competitions, and yeah, Sai was just glad that she could live her life happily and with people that she loves. Pachi continues his life as a lumberjack, but will occasionally get a drink with some of his friends from the show like Nape and Sai, so yeah, there's that. Lop continues to be a lifeguard, but also helps S with her freelance art every once in a while, the two eventually becoming a couple sometime after the show. Needless to say, Lop was happy with her life. Luke continues to enjoy his life while also supporting his siblings and developing his relationship with Bria. He also became a lot happier with himself thanks to having more people that support him the way he is. And while Leaf is at college and Zahn is beginning to spend more time with Lumi than at the orphanage, Luke is at least happy that his siblings are happy, and with help from people like Brio, Sai, and Nape, he begins to transform the grey and lifeless orphanage into more of a home. Speaking of Nape, however, he decided to take up the bar exam instead of going back to work as a cop, and is currently enjoying life while also helping Luke with the renovations and getting to spend time with people like Pachi. And finally, we have Esp. With her earnings, she decided to convert half of that into a way to make passive income through art tutorials and online classes, while using the other half to help her life and career, while also building up her bond with Lop. So yeah, that's about it for these contestants. What did you think of this attempt at me remaking my original TPI series? Would you like to see me do another one that has me going over seasons like total Pokemon history, humanized, or even stuff like performance? Let me know in the comments below. Until we meet again, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.
For the last time, I'm not having a car.
Come on, Soplane. It's called a carbonara, and it's delicious. Sai cooked it for Sola and I the other night. Besides, you could use a break after all that investigating.
Porca miseria! It is pronounced carbonara. Anyways, what is this about an investigation? Death. Someone has cheated you and avoided that trip into the afterlife. I finally found who it was. First off, we're co-workers, so you're allowed to refer to me by my real name, Banis. Second, was it a good or terrible person? Worst of the lot. Very well. I will send my main body to retrieve him. Where is he? Unknown. But we did find out he is auditioning for a second season of the show we were just on. I'll go film an audition as well. This main body could use a slight vacation anyways.